Hello everyone, welcome to Uipath. It's me Rakesh Gupta, and today we are going to discuss about difference between Excel application scope and workbook. So when you are working on Excel in Uipath, so you get the Excel related activity from two scope. One is the Excel application scope. Let me show you. Let's say I want to read range. So here you can see I am getting two activity for read range. One is coming from the Excel application scope and one is coming from the workbook. So today we are going to discuss about difference between these two. So the first and most important difference is that, let's say in your laptop or computer, if the Excel is not installed, what I mean by Excel is not installed means if you are not having the MS Office installed on your system, so in that scenario, if you have to perform any Excel related activity, so you can use the Excel related activity that is coming from the workbook. Means even though the Excel is not installed on my system, I can use the read range activity that is coming from the workbook. Okay, so on my system I have the Excel installed, so that's why I cannot show you this. But if the Excel is not installed on your system and if you have to use some Excel related activity, so you can use the activity from the workbook. Okay, now second is that if you have to access the chart and diagram related data, so for that you cannot use the Excel scope, you have to use the workbook activity. What I mean by this, let me show you example. So here I have the chart in my Excel, right? So if I want to perform some operation on this chart, so for that I have to use workbook related activity. Okay, not from this Excel. Okay, now the third difference is that if Excel is already open, then in that scenario the Excel application scope activity will not give you any error. Let me show you this by doing this practically so that you can remember it. So let me take a Excel application scope here and I'm just going to take this data and I'm opening it as well. And now let's say I have to read this B2 field. So I will take a read cell activity because here I am reading a particular cell, and instead of A1 I am giving it as B2, and this value I am storing it into a cell value. So by pressing the Ctrl K, I can create a new variable and I am just going to display it into a message box. Let me increase the scope of this variable, then only I can use it outside this, right? So here you can see I have opened the same Excel and same Excel I am trying to read. The sheet one, okay, sorry, I have given here the sheet 1, but if you will see the here I am having sheet name as data. So let me rename it as data, and now I am going to read the B1 value. So you can see even though the Excel is open, I am able to read the data. But this is not the scenario with the workbook. What will happen? Let's say I am taking the read cell activity from the workbook. Okay, and let me give this path. Okay, and here it will be data, and here it's a B1, right? Let me store the value into cell value. Let me take a message. No need to take the message box because while reading the cell I will get the error message. So I will show you. I am going to run this file and I have opened the Excel sheet. So here you can see I am getting an error message that process cannot access this file because it is being used by another process. Okay, so this is what I want to explain, that if you are using the workbook activity, then Excel file must be closed, then only we will able to access it. Now I am closing it and running the workflow again. This time I will not get any error message. See, we are able to read it. Okay, now coming to the next one. In your Excel, if you have written any macro and you want to execute that, so for that we have to take the activity from the Excel application scope. So if I will go into Uipath and type macro, so you can see this execute macro activity is coming from Excel sheet, Excel application scope. So let me take a Excel application scope and here I will take execute macro, because macro activity is not available into workbooks, so we have to use it from here. And here I have created a let me open and show you. If I will press the Alt F11, so you can see here I have written a macro with the name test, and in this I have just written a message box. Okay, I'm going to close this, and here macro name is test, right? And if I will run this, I will get a pop-up message. So you can see the message box I am getting, hello Uipath. There are many more difference. I have not noted it all here. There is one more difference, that let's say if you have to get the color of cell. Okay, so get cell color activity is available only within this Excel application scope. Okay, it's not there in the workbook. So for that, let's say here I have to fetch the color of B4. Okay, so here I will write B4 and let me name it as data, because my sheet name is data. If you can see it here, and let me define the color as cell color. Okay, and I have to increase the scope also. So you can see for cell color the variable type is color, right? So I have to convert it into the string. Cell color dot to string, and if I will execute it, you can see the color is white. Okay, it's a white because one moment, it's a D4, but the thing is that why it's doing D4. Okay, because I am taking the another Excel sheet, I have to take out this one. It's my mistake. So now this is the same Excel sheet that I have opened, and now if I will run this, it will give me the correct value. So you can see it's giving color as yellow. Also, if you will type here Excel application on scope or something Excel, so you can see in Excel application scope, this is the Excel application scope, we have rich set of activities. But if you will type workbook here, so in workbook we have limited activities. Here you can see we have only these many activities, but in the Excel application scope we are having much number of activities. Okay, coming to the next point. So basically Excel application scope is preferred when you have to do multiple operation. What I mean by that in Excel application scope you can see we have to define the Excel path once, and then we can write or multiple activity, let's say read range. So I have to just drag and drop here. I do not need to define the path of the Excel sheet again and again. But if you take read range activity from the workbook, so here you can see every time you have to define the path, right? So every time you have to define the path. Or read cell. So if I am taking it from the workbook, so you can see for each activity we have to define the path. So normally it's preferred when you have to do the multiple operation into Excel, then we prefer the Excel application scope. Okay, and there is one more difference which I have not mentioned here in the screenshot. In Excel application scope you are getting an output of workbook. Okay, so what is the benefit of this? That we have a activity called close workbook. Okay, so let's say I am capturing this Excel into this Excel workbook. Okay, and here once my work will be done, so I can close the Excel workbook. Okay, but in the workbook activity there is no way to capture the output. Okay, here the output is data table. Okay, so try to understand the difference between this. So actually what I want to say that, let's say actually I was working on a project where I have to download around 70 to 80 Excel file from the Chrome, and then we need to do some manipulation. We have to read the Excel sheet and then we have to do some data manipulation. So if you are using, in that scenario, if you are using this workbook activity, so you might get the error. Okay, so it's always better to use Excel application scope in that scenario, and once your operation is done, close the Excel workbook and then again open the Excel sheet and then close it. Okay, so in this way. Now coming to the next one, in Excel application scope we can get all the sheet name. Let's say I don't know in my Excel how many sheet we have. Okay, so in that scenario, if you will go into Uipath and type sheet, so here I am getting a, let me delete this first. Here I am getting a activity called get workbook sheets. So this will give me a, if you will mouse over here, so it's giving me a list of all the sheets. So I'm just writing sheet name, and then I can take a for each activity to display the name of all the sheets. Okay, let me take this for each activity. So for each sheet in let me increase the scope of this. Sheet name, and I'm just going to display it. So I'm going to take a message box activity. And let me change the type argument. So here using the Excel application scope we can get list of all the sheet, and let's say if you have to validate that whether a particular sheet exists or not. So in that scenario we can use this Excel application scope. Let me run it and I will show you. So here we are having three sheet: data, sheet 1 and sheet 2. So it's giving me data, then sheet 1, then sheet 2. But the same activity is not available within the workbook. Okay. So these are some difference between the Excel and workbook activity. So if you like my video, please press the like button and you can also subscribe my YouTube channel. Thanks.